Okay, we're going live. 5, 4, 3. Welcome to the Missouri Liberty Alliance. Happy Halloween to those who celebrate such holidays. It is the 31st of October, 2021. Did you ever think you'd see the day? We're going live. 5, 4, so 3. Let me turn off this echo here. Give me just a moment. To the Missouri Liberty Alliance. Happy Halloween to those who celebrate such holidays. It is the 31st of October.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see. I thought we'd be in absolute despotism by now, which we are.
Yeah,
I thought it'd be more, little deeper than what it is.
Yeah, it could be worse.
Yeah, it could be worse.
So, hey, is there anyone in the chat? Let us know. Give us a 5x5. Let us know if you can hear us okay. Audio is important. So let us know if you are hearing us okay.
Es importante.
Gudzu spricht und Pausennacht. Okay, we're getting a 5x5 from Dord. Thank you very much, GFI. Okay. So, yeah, we don't have a whole lot of people in the chat yet, but that's my fault because I didn't send out an email like I said I would. Sheraton Farmer, Fish, Golf, and Guns. Oh, man, Fish, Golf, and Guns. That's awesome. Okay, and then let's see. Jebediah, hey there, 5x5x5x5x5. Wow, that's pretty cool, man. That means the audio is awesome. So that's exactly what we needed. Well, I'll tell you what, gang. Thought we would talk about several things tonight. And like I said, we don't have a big audience yet. It'll grow during the evening. I know a lot of folks are taking their kids out trick-or-treating or they're answering the door for trick-or-treaters. I'm out in the country, so I don't get that very much. So what about you, Liberty? Do you have a lot of trick-or-treaters coming by?
We get none of that where I am. We still buy the candy just, in case you get one. But, and it's like, we haven't had a trick-or-treater out here. And, well, I think 1 year out of how long have I been at this? Wow. 15 years been there. So it's, I think we had one during that 15 years out of all the years. So.
And hey, we have M. Gabriel with us too. Hey there, Gabriel. Okay, gang, let's kick her off with this one. What do you guys think of the governor's executive order protecting all of us from federal mandates? Hey, we got
you only want to ask me.
Don't want to ask Casey Rich. Hey, listen, gang. I got to show you this. I'm gonna get you a link right in the chat here because I didn't even know this until literally a few minutes ago. But the governor's full interview, 30-minute interview on This Week in Missouri Politics actually came out 6 hours ago, and I missed it. And he talked about his executive order in it. So I'm going in dry here. I didn't get a chance to watch it, and I'll tell you what, it's almost a deal where I almost want to play it for us, in real time.
Why don't you?
Okay, we can do that. Here's the link, first off. And let me go ahead and start it up so we can figure out what the heck the governor said here, because most of us, it looks to us like it covered state employees only. So I'm going to go ahead and start playing it. Let me know if you guys can hear it okay.
Governor Parson, thanks for the time.
Good morning, Scott. Glad you're in here.
So this week, you, at this desk, signed an executive order saying that you were going to not comply with some of the federal government's COVID mandates. Tell folks what that actually means.
Nice. I had
the guy swinging a hammer today.
Yeah, I think the big thing is I think the misunderstanding of this is, one, we had to figure out what could we do, and you had to know what those regulations were. If they were going to go down the OSHA rule, well, what is that rule going to look like? So to even be able to file a lawsuit, to work with the Attorney General, we had to get some of that information. I think we finally know a little bit what's in there. I think we know supposedly they're going to drop that here in the next couple of days. If they do, I think there's a tremendous amount of pushback, so I don't know if they were or not. But I think the main thing is we're trying to say is, look, the federal government does not have the right under the Constitution to do any sorts of mandates on the state levels to state citizens. We don't believe they have the right to do that healthcare side of it, to be able to do that. It's never been done before. And then when you try to go OSHA, There's nobody in this country that doesn't understand that that's a far reach of how you're going to try to implement something. And I think as soon as that comes out, whether it's us, whether it's Florida, whether it's Texas, whether it's Iowa, you just name them. There's going to be half the states of the United States are going to file lawsuits against this. And our biggest hope is, one, we get it in the right court. The last thing you want is on the West Coast, you know, to lose there first. So there's a little bit of strategy to that. And then just to put a stay on it until we can have a chance to fight our battles with it.
You know, in my gut, it looked like a lot of big companies were already pretty, well, not making folks, but they were pushing pretty hard to get vaccinated.
Right.
Looked like that was working. When the president gets involved, it looks almost political. I'm not sure that he actually helped get folks vaccinated.
He didn't hurt. He didn't help at all. Look, in the state of Missouri, people are getting vaccinated every day by the tune of about 10,000 people a day, and has been, long before there was ever a federal mandate. Now it's almost the vice versa. Now you got people digging in more that's not going to do it because you're trying to put a mandate on people. And you know how people are in Missouri. Anybody that's been around here any length of all. You know, you ask them to do something, they're pretty good about taking a thought and saying, okay, let me think about that. But if you start trying to make somebody do this, and for the CEOs and the businesses out there, COVID-19 is going down. Delta variant's going down in this state. You know, at a very fast pace, it's going down. Hospitalization's going down. And, you know, people are back out. Crowds are happening in stadiums and all this. And it's not what everybody made it out to be. Not to say it's not serious, because it is a very serious thing. People can still die from COVID-19. But the point of it is, let people make a decision. They're making it. The vast majority of the people in this state has had a vaccine. And if you would even count the herd immunity in there, the numbers are pretty, I think, pretty high that people have went through this process. We just got to keep working on it. But mandates is not the way to go.
I've heard some folks at the in the state legislature here say they want to make companies not be able to, you know, make their employees be vaccinated. Boy, to me, the party that supported business, that sounds a little odd coming from them. Will that happen in Missouri?
You know, Scott, I don't know. I don't know what the legislature did. They're going to have a chance. You know, I mean, there's been a lot of them, you know, hit up about we want a special session, we want a special session. That's great to say that, but what is your outcome of a special session? What is your outcome going to be in January and February? Now, everybody's going to have a chance to come up here, and which I think is the right way to go. Because if you go back and look at the history of vaccines, let's say it's smallpox, let's say it's measles, whatever it might be in the state, it was a legislative action that created that. So everybody in the state of Missouri had a due process. They had representatives up there, they had senators. They haven't had that with COVID-19. All you've simply had is a president saying we're going to do this without going through Congress or what I would say due process for everybody.
If you have, though, the Democrats as party of more government services, the Republicans the party of business, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. If the Republicans aren't the party of business, it's going to be kind of lonely for business owners in this state, ain't it?
Well, I think so. And then I think you look at it, you know, and I'll give an example of a couple that I know that owns a nursing home. And let me just walk through just to say that for a minute. Okay, you got the people that built the nursing home. It's on their land. It's their property. They built it. They've been in business. People trust them, take care of their loved ones. And then you have the employee that goes to work there, that he has to decide whether I'm working there, whether I'm not, what do I want to fall under, what regulations. And then you have the patient that's in there. So who does the Constitution protect when you look at it from that scenario? Now, it's easy to pick one of the above. It depends on whose side you want to be on. But the Constitution doesn't say who a business owner is, who an employee is, or who a patient is. They all have rights under the Constitution. So I think we got to be very careful how we move in that process as a one-person governor or a one-person president. That's why I think the legislative body needs to be engaged on this issue.
Well, Governor, the state teachers database was hacked and by a Post-Dispatch reporter. It seems confusing. What would you say to like a logger in Ripley County? What could you tell him about what's going on if he reads it and he doesn't quite understand what happened?
Yeah. Well, you know, again, I got to be a little careful because this is under investigation. So I will speak kind of what I know of at the beginning of it. I think the first question has to be asked, why would you even be doing that? Yeah. Why would anybody, whether it's the media, whether it's the private sector, why would you be trying to get in a system? What was the purpose of that? So I think that's the first question you need to ask. The second thing is if you were to go into it and you've seen there was a opening there, you know, or whatever, however they want to describe it, as you got into the system, you know, why would you simply not just says, hey, you got a problem here, you need to fix it? Why would you remove Social Security numbers from the system? And nobody has the right to go do that. You may be going there and see a flaw in it, and I get that, but still I think the question has to be asked, why'd you do it in the first place?
Kind of like the FBI getting the concealed carry database twice from the state of Missouri, and Missouri didn't do anything about it. Yeah, so Okay, I'm going to stop there for now unless we have a reason to go forward. What are your guys' thoughts on what he just
Now
said there?
pause that.
Go ahead, Caleb.
I was gonna say, hang on a second here. I need to turn this thing down. Anyway, I had to turn that down.
Okay.
You were saying?
Yeah, let's talk about what he just said because it was more nonsense as far as I'm concerned about he didn't say he covered all Missourians with this. And he didn't say he just covered state employees. Did you guys listen?
Yeah, he never mentioned that.
No. So what is it that executive order did?
Nothing.
Well, I can say one thing.
Okay.
With how it's written, it goes over the executive departments. And if you're, it depends on how the state. I have to be more familiar with how the Missouri is structured in this regard. But the Missouri Department of Justice and whatnot falls under the executive, and it prohibits the executive from enforcing that with any penalties on businesses.
Yep, I understand.
So
I understand
does that
part.
does that apply with cops too? Are they not allowed to enforce it because of that executive order? Now, there's certain limits Parsons has over an executive order, but if he actually supports that, why didn't he allow for a special session?
Yeah.
So it's multi-layered. It's a very, very multi-layered topic.
And I see it that way too. In fact, I'm still confused because for some reason the governor is trying to take credit for protecting Missourians without saying he protected Missourians. Is that what you guys are getting out of this too? That's what it feels like. And I understand that there's a lot of things that I don't get, but Caleb, we read this together, and I know that KC Rich looked into this too, and that executive order seems just, I said in an earlier video, deliberately ambiguous. I mean, it doesn't really seem to say anything other than the state can't penalize anyone for not following a Biden executive order. But how does that help business or people working in businesses that are losing their jobs? KC, you had something?
Yeah. How much more of that interview's left? I want to see if that guy asked him about the executive order itself.
Okay, gotcha.
There's plenty. Covers.
Yeah, there's plenty more to it. First off, I'm going to answer a few things, and hello to everyone joining us right now.
Because I don't want to make a bunch of comments on the dude without seeing the whole interview first.
Okay, got you. We'll get right back to it in just a little bit here, gang. Let me answer a few comments that are coming in. Beth had asked, hey, what happened to the rocket stove video? It was taken down. Yep, there was an enormous amount of technical difficulties actually getting that streamed. So I ended it, and I'm really sorry about that. We're going to have to try again another time. We ran out of sunlight, to actually get the technical problem solved. So that's what happened to it. But the rocket stove itself worked great. Really, really well. Very happy with it. Boy, does it get hot. Actually, I got a pretty good burn, too, because I was stupid. But it happens. Guys are stupid from time to time, the thing
especially when they're around fire and explosives.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I have a little bit of a blister going on here. So I do have a souvenir from our first use of the rocket stove. Let's see. Let's get some more comments here. Nevada Cario's here. Voodoo Queen. Hello to everybody. Flyover State is here. Thank you, Flyover State. Appreciate that. And Voodoo Queen is back, guys. Her eye surgery went well. So we are very happy to have you back, Voodoo. Okay, Jebediah says, sounds like he's prohibiting prosecution, but not business kicking people out or firing them. Yeah, but once again, businesses can still do it. And it's not like there's a blanket amnesty. I mean, it sounds like he's just setting up the loosest safety net humanly possible, knowing that OSHA regulations, and he said that too, he knew that OSHA something is coming from OSHA. But I do think it's coming after January 1st, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Let's get back to what he's talking about. They're talking about the hack now. But at the same time, I'm sorry to put you guys through this, but I should have done my homework and knew this was up and watched it before we went on so we could go forward. So we'll listen to a little bit more. We're in 6 minutes into a 28-minute video. So we'll do it piecemeal.
I had
Go ahead.
I had another remark to make on the situation too.
Okay.
Another thing as part of the executive department is Department of Health and Senior Services.
Sure.
So that's another one that can't enforce it, I guess is the term.
Okay. So that
So
helps schools, but it doesn't help hospitals. Is that correct?
Well, Department of Health, they're the ones who would be or at least working with OSHA.
Okay.
So the only thing I can say is if this is what I think it is, which I can't be certain because main thing is I can't quite distinguish because every state's different, how the police departments function alongside the executive. Is it a direct portion of the executive or is it separate, or how does that work? But my point being is that this will likely be help tell apart, which ones are willing to comply and which ones won't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. But still, like I said, extremely ambiguous. I mean, they should have put a press release right alongside it to explain what the heck they meant by only the executive branch. And so, I don't know. I mean, it's just worded so poorly, in my opinion.
It's horrible. But I also know, based on, I think it's chapter 44 of RSMO, the governor's also extremely limited what he can do in executive power.
RSMO revised Missouri statutes, right?
So yeah, chapter 44.
Chapter 44. Okay, I'll have to look into that. Okay, and we have Robin Downing joining us too. Hey, thank you very much, Robin. We're going to continue on with the interview with Governor Parson here from This Week in Missouri Politics and comment as we go. This is, like I said, our own governor right here in Missouri, and we already covered, I think, we're going to find out, but I think we covered the executive order for preventing mandates, but they moved on to the hack now. So we'll continue on.
What was the motive behind that? And then why would
I'm going to switch devices real quick. I'll be back.
Okay.
Nobody has the right to do that. And I think that's probably the biggest, the sticking point to this whole deal. It'd been one thing if you'd went in there and you really was doing it for the right reasons, quote, what they would like to put the spin on it, that, hey, we're just trying to help. Well, why would you take somebody's social security number out there if he's really trying to help? What was the purpose for that?
It really becomes a surprise to many folks that the Postal Dispatcher is trying to help your administration. That'd be a pig in a poke. Now, I don't know hacking. I'm a simple hillbilly. I can barely work that iPhone. My daughter has to help me with it sometimes. But if there's an investigation, of anything like this, and it comes out maybe a state employee helped them, would you advocate they be prosecuted as well?
Most certainly. If there's anybody involved in this, would. I think what you got to think of, this is against the law to do this. It doesn't matter whether it's the Post-Dispatch or whether it's a private citizen. It's one thing to go in there and see that, but it's one thing to take people's information. The law's pretty clear on that. And it depends what she's going to use that information for. And we don't know that. That investigation's still going on today of how that's going to be. And I don't know who all's involved. That investigation and even whose social security numbers. And I'll be honest with you, even if it ever happened, I don't even know that it happened at this point, and we're still working on that. So again, there's an investigation in there of whether this even really did happen the way it said that it happened, or whether it didn't, but that's what the investigation's about.
Just an error, and maybe this is just the hick in me, but it just seems a little bit like the folks that overwhelmingly elected you about a year ago, I don't think they elected you for your IT skills. It just feels like there's a hint of elitism in some of this stuff. And maybe it's because you're not what they call Obama was a community organizer. Maybe it's because you had a real job or something, and it just feels a little hint in some of those highfalutin ivory towers in St. Louis, a hint of elitism about how they talk about this.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm going to be careful what I say, and I'm no computer expert. I'll be the first to admit that. There's a lot of people out there that are. But here's the one thing I will tell you. Why in the world would the Post-Dispatch, I'll just say them, and I will say some of the other media outlets that all work together in conclusion with what their stories are going to be, why would they not want an investigation? Why would they not want to know the truth and let the people know the truth of what happened? But they pretty well spun the story from day one that it was a right click Well, trust me, it's much more than a right
Yeah.
click, because you got to talk about decoders and all these kind of things that were used, and totally misleading the public. But I don't know if that's anything unusual when you talk about some of those people like that or what they're doing. But again, let the investigation happen. Let's see what happens.
Talk about a real disaster. You down in southeast Missouri in Fredericktown, I mean, just devastated. That co-op building is a real source of pride for everybody in southeast Missouri. Tell folks what you saw down in Fredericktown.
You know, I'm going to tell you the thing that I remember the most, and I remember whether it was Jeff City, whether it was Eldon, whether it was the floods, I'm going to tell you the one thing that will always come to the forefront when you go to these areas is everyday people out there working, helping one another, being good neighbors. We were at a house yesterday, and there was 2 or 3 heavy pieces of equipment over there.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there. As far as the hack goes, I agree. He spoke, let's just say that he didn't know what he was saying, and he went and threatened a reporter with prosecution when he truly didn't understand what was going on, when the reporter himself was trying to report the hack to the governor. And now I don't know if it's true or not, and I don't remember if I heard this or read this, that it was simple as hitting, like it was shift F12.
It was just F12, I believe.
F12? Okay, then I must have read or heard it correctly then, but I seem to remember F12 for sure. And then all of a sudden you get a on the right hand side of this website, you get a database. You get access to a database by doing that. Now that's a flaw, basically in the website. So that's the people who designed it who work for the state. They're contractors. That's basically the people that they should be looking at. This reporter just tried to report on this, and then suddenly they're talking about him being a hacker. So I don't know if you want to call that deflection or if we need to bring psychology into it, but it was a knee-jerk response for the governor to say anything about it at all with as limited knowledge as he has. I've never seen a guy wear a Mason ring like he has know anything about IT before. I mean, I'm just bringing up a weird observation. He clearly doesn't know anything about IT, so I'm not going to give him credit for knowing anything about IT. But he needs to, relax a little bit and not threaten people with prosecution when he doesn't understand what's going on. That's my opinion. So, people can criticize me personally because I've done snap judgments before, but I'm not a governor of a state threatening someone with prosecution. I mean, that poor reporter probably needed to change his underwear after that exchange with the governor. He's just trying to report a flaw.
I think okay. So did he publicly report it, or did he report it to the
That's a good question. I don't know.
Because if it was reported publicly, I think that's probably a bit of a snap decision on both parts. One being the governor saying, "Oh, well, that's hacking." Well, no, it's just pushing F12, but you don't know anything about, computers. But at the same time, if that was actually the case, it's not exactly a smart idea to just publicly publish, "Hey, you can go on here and push F12 and see everybody's social security numbers."
Yeah. Jebediah says, I work with a guy who had a Freemason ring. You know what? The weird thing is, when people are wearing those big old gaudy Freemason rings, I literally can't see anything else. I keep looking at the ring, and I recognize it. I know what it is. And so I probably shouldn't have brought it up. It's not pertinent to anything. Forgive me, guys, for even bringing it up. So, but at any rate, looks like they've moved topics, KC. Do you want to continue listening here? Do you guys want to continue listening to what the governor's saying? He's talking about basically visiting disaster areas right now, but he did mention southeast Missouri. And if he says anything about southeastern Missouri, hopefully he talks about what's going on with law enforcement down there, because that's pertinent to what we're doing in the Alliance here, for sure.
Yeah, but I want to make a comment going back. It looks like they're done with the executive order thing.
Yeah, it does.
That reporter there, man, that dude he pitched him a softball.
He did. There's a lot of softball going on here, but I've seen
nothing
him do this
came
before.
out of that.
Yeah. So
I just didn't know if they're going to talk about more or not, but obviously not. And I mean, he didn't even bring up fact. I mean, come on, it said plainly that executive order. It's only for executive employees that are qualified for either a medical or religious exemption, nobody else. And that dude did not bring that up.
Yep.
And all those people saying, "Oh, great job, governor and stuff." This guy's pitching softballs, man.
Yep. He did make a good point, though. January, he said, come January, February, everyone will come up to Jefferson City and want to talk about this and have a say and get something done. He
The
is correct
problem
in
is
that.
this, though.
What's that?
The problem is this, though. In the meantime, while
Correct.
they're
People
waiting
are
till
losing
then,
their jobs.
then their jobs.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good
And he
point.
won't address that. And he was even saying, well, what'd he say? Basically, if we'd have had the emergency session, what would we have done?
Yep.
Was that?
That's
Are you
what he
serious?
said. Yep. And he said, not knowing what we know a little more now about with OSHA. But the fact is, it's literally very, very simple. And it always was. We talked about this in the Alliance. Nullify literally any mandates from OSHA.
Yeah.
Any health, or I'm sorry, medical mandates, just nullify them. Literally say they don't exist in the state. We don't acknowledge them. That's all they had to do
you
in
had
special
people in the
session.
legislature that were wanting this back then so they could address this. Yeah, like I said, if he'd have done something then to keep people from getting fired, I know a lot of people like to think, you can't tell a business what to do. Yes, you can. They're subject to rules and regulations. But we're talking people's livelihoods and everything. It's one thing to sit there and say, "Oh, well, we'll wait till January or something." But I bet if that was you, you'd have a whole different thought on it.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, he didn't address it. This guy didn't ask that question. He just skirted the whole thing. There's really nothing came out, aside from, well, you get to talk about it. Well, of course we're going to get to talk about it when it's in session. That's obvious.
Yeah.
But it basically got nothing out of that, man. Guy pitched him a softball and he just whiffed on that.
Yep.
So it's basically a waste of time. The guy, he's just, I don't know. Hopefully people are watching this, and I just still couldn't believe all those people that were thanking the governor for putting out the executive order when the executive order didn't even cover hardly anybody.
Well, I remember reading it the first time, and I literally was downright confused, absolutely confused. Now, my concern was hospitals. And you guys who I talked to privately about that, you guys know where I was going with it. Did this cover hospitals? So we can actually at least keep our hospital staff, because in Missouri here, we're in a bad way, gang. Literally like half of our hospital staffs is like gone now. They were forced, they're not given hours anymore. So, basically go ahead.
It didn't address that either, man. It was just executive employees that were eligible for religious or medical exemption. You don't even know if you really qualify for that. It was basically nothing. Yep. And way people, because I think people reading all those whereases and stuff, they don't understand. That's just a preamble. So once you get down to the law or the order itself, that's what you got to read. That's what counts. The rest of that is just saying, this is the reason why we're doing it. Yep. People are probably reading that going, thinking that all that got cut, was covering them. That's nothing. That was just explaining the point of having the executive order. But the executive order itself, you read it, there's nothing.
Oh, and the first half of that with the preamble is full of lies too. But
it is. Yeah, there's some untruths there, and we don't need to say any keywords that are going to get us shut down. By the way.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying lies. I'm not saying anything specific,
guys.
But I gotta say, it's kind of like when you read the Constitution. People like to look at the preamble of the Constitution and say, "Oh, well, this is what gives it some legal force to do this." No, it's a preamble.
Yep.
That's just a general set of intentions to do with the other delegates.
Exactly.
Yep. It's
on
the
just
screen
stating
right
your
now.
intention.
Yep.
But this guy here is covering for the governor, man. That was a way this got absolutely nothing out of that.
Yep. And that's kind of where I'm at with this
I would say at bare minimum, if there wasn't the specific of the religious exemption, it might be broad enough you could use it in a certain way if you're going to sue various part of a department like Department of Health and Senior Services or something like that. If they are like forcing a hospital to do that.
Yep.
If they specifically are forcing a hospital to do that, or if they are complying with the feds to force the hospital to do that, it might have been a little bit more substantial. But nonetheless, it's still it's milquetoast. It has a minor effect, but it's milquetoast.
Let me read one of these real quick, guys. I covered one of them with the video here, and it was kind of in a joking manner, but let's listen to this one. Whereas the federal government has proclaimed an intent to unilaterally mandate vaccinations from the executive branch without supporting congressional legislation. It doesn't matter if they have supporting congressional legislation. It's still unconstitutional, period. So
it's not a delegated power in the Constitution for
correct.
them to do such a thing at all, ever.
Yep.
They have no power over domestic issues other than making efficient the trade amongst the states.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. So yeah, that's an interesting effect here. He's getting praise, this unilateral, or I shouldn't say unilateral, collateral praise from those who, I don't think, who have read this. If they had, they'd be just as confused as most of us who have actually read it to try and figure out what the heck it means. Because I understand that you can do stealthy things with words, especially when it comes to executive orders, even legislation. We should use that more often, by the way. We'll talk more about that later. That's the way Democrats love to do things, by the way.
Yeah. That guy there, he didn't even ask the governor, say, who does this cover and all that? I mean, nothing. He didn't ask anything. I mean, he's covering for the governor.
He is. And you're right. It wasn't even, softball questions. We're talking Nerf ball questions here.
It's like no questions.
Yeah, seriously.
Total waste of time. He's just covering for him.
Yep. Okay.
It almost seems like they just kind of handed both of them a set of questions to ask and respond to with the exact responses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep. He even mentioned, how hillbilly he is. He doesn't know anything about IT, and his granddaughter has to teach him about his iPhone. Before he says, yeah, you're not an IT guy. They didn't vote for you because of your IT skills.
Nice hillbilly suit there.
Yeah. I know. So, definitely covering for the governor on that and definitely softball questions. I mean, none of us, I think, will dispute that. But the fact remains, we still don't know exactly what that executive order was truly all about, or if it actually accomplishes anything other than allowing, and by the way, guys, this is to the best of my ability to inform you what that executive action was allowing for medical and religious exemptions for state employees. That's really all it did. Is that the general consensus here in the group?
Yes, that's what's in there. If you read it, that's what it says.
Okay.
It's actually pretty simple. Like I said, don't even look at the whereas. That means nothing. Like Caleb said, it just states the intention of having it. And really it's BS too, because obviously it doesn't cover any of those intentions. Yeah. You just have to read the actual executive order itself, and it states it plain as day. It only covers the executive branch employees who qualify for a religious or medical exemption. And who qualifies? How do you qualify? That's not even mentioned. Truth is, nobody really qualifies because Biden hasn't even sent those mandates down. The whole problem was, which is why it should have been addressed in the first place back and had special session, is because Biden just mentioned a mere word of these mandates come down. All these businesses are like, well, hey, we're cleaning house now, so we don't get stuck with any fines.
Yep.
Because you can, and that's basically what's been happening. They've been firing people, letting them go, and everything else. And the governor, he's not addressing that. I mean, that's the whole problem.
You have the ones that are excited about it, then you have the ones that are trying to be compliant before a certain date when that might come out. It's also leaving everybody to catch-22 because in one regard, the moment it comes out, you get fined.
Yep.
In the other regard, there's nothing on paper yet, so there's no legal battle you can have, even though it would lose.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it being that the mandate's not out yet, and you're firing people because of that, there's no legal precedence there.
Yep, that is. Well, I'm just saying in regard to actually specifically fighting the actual oh, what's the word I'm looking for?
Mandate itself.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the actual Supreme Court that battle everybody is fighting for, which is we all know what that is to begin with. But
Yep.
Point being is there's nothing on paper you can take into a courtroom.
Not yet.
But at the same time, everybody's anticipating it, so it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Which is why we should have been proactive and put a law out here in Missouri. Then, if anything, the federal government would have to take that to court.
Yep.
In other words, we could start protecting people here, and they would have to take that. It's just like with SEPA. We passed that. They have to take that to court to try and overturn it. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
By being proactive. But now sitting here waiting on this when the governor had the perfect opportunity to call that special session, although he was saying, well, what were you going to do? Man, you had a whole bunch of people in the House and the Senate that want to do some stuff. What do you mean? Like I said, if we could have passed law or even some executive or whatever, anything, get the ball rolling to stop these businesses and corporations from letting people go. And then, if you're going to say, well, that's not constitutional or, you can't have that law or something, then the feds have got to take that to court. In other words, even then, by taking it to court, you got to wait for that. So those people are still keeping their jobs.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. They should have been proactive and done that. Instead, we're just sitting here. Just the fact that these mandates might show up, businesses, their ultimate goal is to make money. It's not for the betterment of society or anything.
It's
when you get down to it, you got to make money. And what they're going to do is they're cleaning house now so they don't get subject to any of these fines or anything like that. And the fact that cleaning house now is causing all kinds of problems.
You'd be surprised how many of these big corporations are doing a lot of this to their own detriment, and they don't care. And a lot of those ones that are doing this and at their own detriment either have partner businesses, corporations, or they themselves are partners with the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And I want to point something else out, especially since KC had pointed out so eloquently where the problems were, where we could have drawn the line and actually dealt with this proactively. I want everyone to know that the populace is not to blame for this. It's not like they sat by and let all this happen. There was a concerted effort of the populace and many people in the General Assembly to deal with this. The point of failure is this. We have number one, the governor. Governor Parson failed us by not calling a general session. He explained in that
He basically dropped the ball.
He did. But remember now, it's all Nerf balls with him. We know this now because of the interviews. Number two, in our General Assembly here in Missouri, we had a large contingent of conservatives that wanted this dealt with immediately, but they couldn't get the 75% to override the governor on calling a special session. So there's 2 points of failure here. I wouldn't say the populace was just sitting on the sidelines here. They tried to get something. We tried to get something done.
The governor was getting his voicemails and emails blown out.
Yeah.
I mean, he talked to the aides. They had all said the same thing. Yeah, it's coming.
Oh, and then
coming fast and furious.
We had the Senate rat that decided to hold up the one that was being pushed along last year too.
Yep.
This last session.
Yeah.
So that's another failure point.
Yeah.
We all know who that Senate rat is.
Yeah. So, in the fact that we're dealing with this on this level and people have lost their jobs, everyone knows someone now who's, remember how they were saying when the whole health crisis began that everyone would know someone who, wasn't with us anymore because of it, right? Well, now we all know people who have lost their jobs. We all know someone now. So, a measure for measure here. We all know people who have lost their jobs simply because they're exercising their constitutional rights. We're going to have to deal with this and make sure something like this never, ever happens in Missouri ever again. This cannot be allowed. This has got to stop. And I'm calling on anyone, not just people in our alliance, but in any, just grassroots organization. Please help make sure something like this never happens in our state again. We have to do something. And nullification is probably the most efficient way to deal with it. But businesses, this is the complicated thing. And I've had arguments with people about this before. Let me give you two sides of the argument here. It's fascinating, actually. Some people say we should be telling businesses they can't do this. They cannot mandate that. They cannot mandate things for their employees, or else. Yeah, guys, I'm being careful here. So I think you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The other side of it is basically businesses can do that, and the free market will decide if that business will survive. But the problem is, and this is a very serious problem with that side of the argument, and as a libertarian, I'm having a tough time with this, guys. The big problem is that if those businesses that decide, they're going to force things on their employees, keep getting government bailout money or some kind of subsidy or consideration from the federal government for their stance on what they're doing to their employees, we can never let the free market solve the problem. Do you guys agree?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to say this. We do not have free markets.
Yeah.
No. He's totally 100% correct.
Free markets exist in little bits amongst this system we have. This system we have mirrors almost exactly to the T economic fascism.
Mm-hmm. So
down to the T, everything from the central bank to the fiat currency to the use of governments picking winners and losers, and then the winners of that bunch paying off the government and back, and however, it literally is National Socialism.
Okay, that's kind of my feeling too. However, that messing around with telling businesses what to do, that's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to deal with, but they're being told what to do in other ways. Like, for instance, I've made the assertion that law enforcement. Go ahead.
I was going to say, here's where I draw my line, and here's why. If we had free markets, yes, 100% businesses will either do the right thing or fail. We do not have free markets. Free markets can solve an issue, but you can't work with the system in order to use those free markets to collapse the existing system. You have to do what you can with the system you have and then use counter economics.
Yeah, in a free market system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll throw something in if you don't mind.
Sure, go for it.
The Constitution starts off with we the people, not we the businesses, not we the corporations. It's we the people. If you put people first, then you have what the Constitution was supposed to bring about, liberty and freedom. If you put businesses and corporations first, you got what we now have. Simple. I mean, that's how I see it.
Yep. And Jebediah.
I mean, if you give them more power than you do to people, then look what's happening now in our world. I mean, what's the 1%ers are running everything. We can't talk, we can't speak. We're being forced to take a vaccine. That's what happens when you let businesses and corporations have power over people.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people, they like to let they don't want to tell a business what to do, but at some point, I mean, let's face it, businesses and corporations, the bottom line is making money. That's how they stay in existence. It's the nature of the beast. If you don't keep that in check and you let it go untamed, you're going to get what we got now.
Yep.
Not necessarily.
At some point, you guys say no.
That's not necessarily the case. It's oftentimes the government that gets them in that position.
Well,
yeah, but who's running the government right now? All the corporations and everything. It's not us. And being that they're running it, look what you have.
Well, they're running it because the government put them in that position to begin with when they started the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, it's a bad situation.
But who put the Federal Reserve in there? That's what I'm saying.
The bankers.
Government.
Government, I see it as neutral. It just depends on who's controlling it. If it's we the people controlling it, then you can use it for good. If it's corporations, bankers, and everything that are controlling it, then we have no say, and they're going to run roughshod over us like we're doing now. Government is new. That's like saying fire is evil, is either good or bad. It's not. It's how you use it. If you use it right, it can do a lot of good things. If you don't, you can get burned. The problem is we've let corporations take over, and they're running the show, and we don't mean nothing to them. We're just chattel. We're just disposable labor, and you're seeing it now.
There's also a sociological argument as well that could be made regarding all of this. I think that these points are kind of here nor there for this whole thing on the what we're dealing with right now, but it is something that should be addressed even further. Right now, we got this situation between Parsons and trying to figure out exactly what to do about this situation as it exists.
Yep. And we will deal with it. We will. I guarantee it. And we're going to make sure something like this never, ever happens again in our state. And that there's no way something like this, something like this can ever happen again where people, have to make a choice between, feeding their families and taking that. This cannot be allowed. It's certainly unconstitutional, and there's no help from not from the Supreme Court, not from the executive branch, not from Congress. I don't care who's in power anymore. It's getting out of control here. It's really getting out of control. Nullification, gang. I want to talk about what Jebediah put in because he actually had a good comment in here. I agree. As a libertarian, I think business owners shouldn't be told how to run their business. But I think we're getting smarter and realizing big business is becoming another branch of government. That's 100% right. I agree with you. So the point is this, though. How many corporations were getting money from the federal government during the lockdowns? You follow the money. It doesn't take long. You got your Walmarts. You got your Sam's Clubs. You got your drugstores like CVS and Walgreens. These corporate McDonald's, another one. In the mom and pop restaurants, they didn't get any of that bailout money. Only the big
think
ones.
About all the real estate developers, the banks and stuff that the Federal Reserve with the keystroke sent $3-4 trillion out in loans, knowing that this COVID stuff was going to knock a lot of businesses out, and they can swoop in and buy up all those assets.
Yep.
And then when that trillions got loaned out, guess what that goes up against? Our national debt. Then if the national debt climbs, they're going to say, we the people got to pay that off.
Yep,
so
that's
you transfer
correct.
that wealth to them by, of course, you got a debt monetary system, the Federal Reserve. It's so crooked. It's so, it's not government in and of itself that's the problem. It's look who's running it and look how they're running it. That's what I'm saying. When you let a non-people entity run things, the bottom line is making money and accumulating wealth and power. We don't mean nothing. We're just in their way. And like I said, you see what they're doing. We can't talk. We can't speak. We got to worry about what we're going to say on YouTube, or we're going to get ostracized from society. You got to take a jab, or else you ain't going to get the.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's if you don't put we the people first, we're going to be last.
Yep. Matt Perry said, what about SEPA? Get back to that in a second. Voodoo says, we need to make sure that this is Parsons' last term. I believe it is his last term anyway, or he's not running again.
It is. He's termed out.
Okay, he terms out.
He got in there like the first year that we had. What's his face?
Greitens.
Greitens. Greitens was removed, and then he finished out that term, but that still counts as a whole term. Then he was elected again. So.
Okay. Let's talk about SEPA for a second here. I've done some videos about SEPA, Matt. I'm not sure if you've seen them on the Alliance YouTube. There's two things for SEPA right now. One thing is we have a Supreme Court session, Missouri Supreme Court. Sorry, let me be very specific about this. SEPA was taken to court in, I believe it was in Cole County, and the judge threw it out. Said there's nothing wrong with this bill, and also the arguments that the other side used against SEPA were null and void. So they've appealed it, and it's going to the Missouri Supreme Court. So that's the status of that. I don't have a date on that yet. I don't know exactly when that's going to be heard, but I will be getting that data to you guys as soon as I get it. The other side of SEPA is there's a small contingent of people in southeast Missouri that are trying to get SEPA shut down because they say it's hindering their ability to enforce the law in southeast Missouri. And I've done a story on that as well. And that's, SEPA is alive and well right now, but it's under threat from two different sources. One of them's in court, and the other one is legislative from law enforcement. So that's the state of SEPA right now. Matt says,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, and there's a lot more to that as well.
Yep. And let's see. Matt says, these $1 trillion spending bills are just their money laundering schemes. That is absolutely correct. Anticipated, known many, many decades in advance. This is how the monetary system comes to an end, is enormous amounts of printing in a very short period of time. And the deal is, guys, this is how it works. This isn't necessarily Missouri Liberty Alliance stuff, but this is common sense stuff for the end or the economic collapse, the reset, the fourth industrial revolution, the Green New Deal. I mean, call it what you will. It's got many names. You print out an enormous amount of currency and you give it to your buddies directly. And the buddies get to use it before it gets into the general circulation, before it starts inflating prices. Your buddies are using it to buy up assets of value. So assets of value are pertinent here. So let's say it, like mines, gold, silver, real estate, businesses, things that actually have value. The currency doesn't. So they buy those things up, and then the currency filters its way through the general economy, and then the currency is worth less than it was before that new currency filtered into, the general economy. So then it gets down to us. And then we go to the grocery store and we see, oh my goodness, that can of beans is 50 cents more than it was last week, or 50 cents more than it was last month, whatever. That car, that is much more, that house I was looking at, they're asking $20,000 more for it than they were 3 months ago. So that's the inflation you see, from that currency starting to filter through. But that's the point of it. The money printing schemes are to enrich the political class buddies, the military industrial complex, basically the people at the top end of the chain. Let's see, Voodoo. Okay, and then Robin was agreeing with Voodoo. Okay, so at any rate, there's lots of things we need to work on here in Missouri, but I want to give a special message to everybody. This is actually important, and whether or not, by the way, we're live on Discord. If you want to come in and join us right now from YouTube, you're more than welcome to. There's a link right in the video, right in the description section, that'll take you to Discord if you don't have an account. It's free to do. What's really important is that we understand that we are the people, we have the power in the state of Missouri. I'm not going to make that argument for D.C., because I don't think we really matter there. And that's my opinion. Other people have different opinions. I've talked to people on the phone in the last month that have very different opinions than I do. They think we still can affect change in D.C. Maybe I'm cynic, too big of a cynic now. Maybe I'm jaded, but I have tried for decades to try and get stuff done in D.C., and nothing ever happens. So, I'm sorry, nothing good ever happens. Certainly things happen in D.C., but it is up to us. If we
I still say we get more done here, so,
yep.
And it's more accessible.
Yep. It's easier to get things done in a state. And for us here in Missouri, we need to organize here and make sure that we have a massive voice going into the 2022 legislative year to make sure that we stay constitutional in the state of Missouri, we get our rights back, or we maintain our rights, whatever we need to do to make sure that federal tyranny doesn't drip or spill or gush into the state of Missouri. It's up to us. literally us. So that's, quite a calling, isn't it? But one thing that's really awesome about Missouri that you won't find in most other states is that there's so many liberty-minded people here. It's like one of the biggest open secrets there is. Missouri is full of liberty-minded people. We have a lot of them here. And so we need to start tapping those folks. So my plea to you guys is, every one of you that actually watches this, please let your friends and your family know that are also liberty-minded, to let them know about the Alliance. Get them involved, get them on the website and on the email list. Because like I said, we're just gathering names right now. We're, basically what we're doing is we're storing ammunition, because the email list, we're not using it for much right now because we don't really need it right now, but we're going to need it come January. Please get on that list. It's right on our website. It's right down in the description section of the video. So let's, basically let's show the rest of the United States. Missouri is very different. We're getting things done. There's a great comment on one of my videos, and I wrote something back to the person who put a comment. See if I can find it real quick. Let's see if it was this video. Oh, that's another thing, guys, I was going to talk about. I don't want to talk about this too much because there's already been complaints on Odyssey and BitChute about me, quote unquote, complaining about YouTube and our treatment we're receiving from YouTube, which is a little bit of a pain, to be honest with you. And I don't mean to complain about this obsessively. If you guys know me from the Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast, I promised I wouldn't become that guy. And I've become a little bit of that guy, so I apologize. But YouTube is messing with us. And one of the things that you'll find is the comments. You'll find that the number of comments and then the comments that you read down below do not match up. So there's two things you can do. Look on your screen right now and sort by newest first. And then a bunch of comments come up that weren't previously available to you. And so that's one thing. And then the other thing is, and I know this from actually being in the YouTube studio, being the owner of the channel, that some of those comments literally just don't even come up in the studio. I can't see them. They're enumerated. I can see that there's a number for it, but there's no comment. So in one of the latest videos, we have 12 comments that literally don't even show up in the studio. So YouTube is covering up comments or censoring them, or, I don't know what they're doing, but it's certainly not me. Guys, the only comments I remove that are ones that I find that are deliberately set by bots. Those are the only ones I remove. Good, bad, or ugly, I love your comments. I leave them in there. I respond to them. Even when people yell at me on BitChute, which has happened recently. I had a guy, swearing at me. And he was swearing at me because I was complaining about YouTube. So, set the record straight here.
Yeah, that's BitChute.
Yep, that was on BitChute.
That dude probably got kicked off of YouTube, so he's probably go, what?
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't blame him for yelling at me for that, because I did promise I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't be the guy that complains about YouTube censoring the channel all the time and constantly taking away view counts, and preventing us from going into recommended pools. I wasn't going to be that guy, and I ended up doing it at least a little bit. And so I just wanted to let you guys know I'm not going to complain about it anymore, but I'm going to make a special request. We need 1,000 subscribers. And I know people think, oh, you're going to monetize. No way. No way. I will not monetize through YouTube because it enters in a new set of rules and parameters that I don't want to deal with. What you get with 1,000 subscribers is you get the ability to actually live stream from a cell phone. And that's what I need. I do need that when we go up to Jefferson City. Now, I don't ask for people to promote our channel, so I generally don't do that. But I've had offers, and I've had a couple of offers, and I'm going to take up, basically up a couple of people on those offers. That should help us out a little bit. And but we do need to have 1,000 subscribers before January. Otherwise, I can't live stream from Jefferson City. I can only give you guys situation reports after the fact. I would like to live stream with some politicians. Actually, is what I'd like to do when I'm going up there and visiting with these folks up there. Is we're trying to get the good work done up in Jefferson City. And it's always a fun deal to catch a politician off guard and start interviewing them. That's always a lot of fun too. But anyway, I'm sorry, I
That does sound
digress.
like fun.
It does, doesn't it? It's because it is fun. Give me a second here. I got to find this because some guy made a great comment and I answered him. And let's go to comments. Okay, here we go. It was, I think I might be your daddy. And so that's his screen name. He says, why does Florida and Texas gather all the good headlines? Yet I see Missouri as a state doing the most for the cause of freedom. Is it because those states are huge population-wise? Or is it because two aforementioned states are basically just AstroTurf? But Missouri's the real deal. So it isn't mentioned? I mean, this is the show-me state. And despite some of the bumps in Missouri's politics, this really seems to be the show-me grassroots state. Am I just biased? And I love the comment, by the way. If you happen to be watching, I think I might be your daddy. I want to thank you for that comment. So I wrote back, that's complicated. I think Missouri doesn't make the news because of SEPA. I think if SEPA were seriously in the news, 30 states would be trying to replicate what we have done, and that would destroy the federal gun regulation completely. This is a serious concern with the federal government. Also, our anti-abortion laws are literally top-notch. We'll talk about this very soon, by the way. We'll talk more, and I told him we'll talk more about that soon. Let's see. We get no national recognition for this because they are secretly smart, not outwardly pro-life. Let me explain that. It comes down to the way legislation is handled. You can be very bold and loud with your legislation and excite your bases, but that also gets the opposition involved violently sometimes. Or we can have a secretly smart and stealthy conservative legislative successes. So Missouri's under the radar as far as I'm concerned. A lot of people don't know about us because the press doesn't want to talk about the successes we're having out here as constitutional conservatives. Why would they advertise and make other states want what we have? So I think that's part of the deal why we don't get a lot of good headlines. SEPA is still an open secret. Even within our own state, there's a lot of folks that don't even know we had it. So at any rate, that's what I had to say. And as far as the pro-life thing goes, it looks like next Sunday night, Dave Plemons from Missouri Right to Life will be joining us live and talking to us a little bit about the successes we've had in the state of Missouri and how, from many points of view, we have surpassed Texas. Now, we won't know this for about a year, but I do think that our anti-abortion laws are actually better than Texas law, even though Texas is getting a lot of fanfare right now for that 6-week period that they have. But we have a 2-month period. So ours is 2 weeks longer than Texas. However, we have something special. We have, an ace up our sleeve. And we'll have Dave come in and talk about that next week. Dave Plemons, also a very old friend of mine, by the way. He and I have been in the trenches for 2 decades. So I'll be very, very happy to have him on. Okay, we'll get back to the chat here real quick. But at any rate, so you guys know that's what's happening with the comment section. There is absolutely no censorship on comments from me happening whatsoever. So I want you guys to know that. That is simply not happening. I only take out the stuff that's guaranteed bot stuff, and that's it. I even leave the bad stuff in there. Let's see. Share Pacific Northwest Coffee. Thinking of starting. Okay, all right, gotcha. All right. Let's see. I am gray listed from using certain words and comments. If I use any political word, my comment will not appear to anyone if I obfuscate. Okay, by spelling them wrong. Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, so use incorrect spelling for obfuscation is what Jebediah is recommending. That's a good idea, by the way.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, actually, I'm really, really meticulous. I try very, very hard not to do misspellings. So I never thought of that. Actually, that'll disturb my OCD in a very big way.
Oh, that's funny.
So, all right. So, all right, guys, what else we got on the plate here?
I want wonder if, I mean, has anybody actually watched that whole interview to see if SEPA or those, those guys down in the Southeast were addressed, or whether that was even on the table in that interview or not?
Anyone want to chime in that's watching on YouTube right now? Have any of you watched that full interview with the Governor Parson? A 30-minute interview? I mean, we could go back to that if you guys want to.
Or maybe just if you just push through it real quick and, I'm saying, move it up 5 minutes a piece and see if it gets addressed.
Okay, gotcha. We'll do that.
And literally the guy said, this belongs to Farmer such and such. Here we go on that. No, Caleb Jones, his dad, has been close friends for a long time of mine, long before in the old days as sheriff, when Caleb Jones was a little kid. And he has
I got to ask
Caleb.
He's still
a kid on that. But he was down there. The co-op guys were back out on doing their jobs the same night. And literally, I think they only had 1 or 2 trucks available. And there was all kinds of resources come in there to help. So my hat's off to people in southeast Missouri. But you come from that part area, those are hard.
When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000.
I saw the School Board Association of Missouri.
Oh, here we go, school board.
The national one. The national one had gotten, it seemed like it'd gotten real far afield from what someone in Ripley County schools would be for.
Yeah, most certainly.
And I saw you congratulated them.
Yeah. You know what? I thought that was a bold move on their part. The first really education entity that I know of that really just stood up and said, look, we're going to take care of our school board members at our state. We're proud of our school systems. We can take care of ourselves, federal government. We don't need the FBI in here. We don't need the Department of Justice in here. And I'll be honest with you, and I was in law enforcement 22 years. They're not coming anyhow. No. All they're going to do is they're going to compile information on somebody that turns somebody in and says, hey, there's this radical person or this person that went to a school board meeting. And who are they to judge what those people are? Parents have a right to go to a public entity and be able to say their piece in front of a public school board. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, it just felt like the education establishment, and even in Missouri, which I've been a promoter of, hasn't done a lot to speak to parents in a while. This may be the first real bold thing to say, hey, we understand. We understand. I thought that may be a more important thing than people realize for education.
I don't think there's any doubt. There's going to be a good side to this, too. I think when this is all said, people understand how important the school board election is today, where they didn't 2 years ago. And you're going to see much more people involved in those things. That's a good thing. That's a good thing you start paying attention to that. And I think with everything that's been on, all the controversial pieces that's going on in the schools, people are starting to pay attention to that. But the point of it is the federal government has no business in that. You're basically saying every law enforcement agency in the state of Missouri can't handle this situation. We don't need the federal government in here. And frankly, the only reason they're coming in here is for politics. It has nothing to do with enforcement. And I think most people know that.
Your attorney general has been filing a bunch of lawsuits against folks. One of them is to get the mask off kids' faces. Now, I did a phone call to Neelyville, where I went to school. They don't have a mask policy. They haven't lost any children. Wheatland, where you went to school, they don't have a mask. They haven't lost any kids. How is school districts like Neelyville and Wheatland so much smarter and handle this so much better than places like Rockwood? That's a disaster.
You know what? I think you've seen Jefferson City, I think, did away with theirs. I think there's other people. Look, the problem is people are really starting to look at the science part of this and keeping all the political side out of it. These schools are getting along fine. They've been in there for the last 2 years. The vast majority of schools have been open. They haven't had problems during this time. And I think if anybody would be willing to give it, a just look, if you find out what a school that hasn't been using a mask date versus one that has,
except down in Southeast
and look at that
Missouri,
data situation on that. But look, it's time to let kids be kids. We know that this variant is going down. We know it's going down very rapidly. And we know that we're not having problems in the school system that everybody predicted we would have, as they have on this whole COVID-19 situation. The predictions have always been much, much greater than what really happened, and I think we're seeing that now. I just think, these kids, at some point, you're going to have to let them be kids, and you're going to have to let them learn. I don't think you can keep them in a mask all the time.
You've served in the House, the Senate. You've been a big proponent of public schools and public education. You're a product of public education, as am I. I don't think some of these folks realize the damage they're doing and the bonds they're breaking to that, because let's be honest, the reason there's not greater reforms that public school folks advocate against is because of rural Republican legislators. I don't think they see the damage they're doing to that relationship.
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. I think when you look at different pockets of the state, whether it's St. Louis, whether it's Kansas City, whether it's Columbia or Springfield, I think there was a bond between all of that that's going to be on shaky grounds for a while. of how they're going to move forward in this, and you're just right. For the most part, rural schools do a good job of doing education. They really do.
I agree with
you know. It's when you get in the political aspect of what you're seeing now, I'll just mention the St. Louis school system. All of a sudden, when you start talking, we're going to mandate vaccines, that's going to be problematic, when they start trying to do that, because it's not their job to decide the health care of that kid. It's mom and dad's decision what's the best thing for that kid as far as health care goes.
Speaking of folks moving forward, this state's getting back to work. 3.8% unemployment. Got to be proud of that.
Well, we're proud of that. I mean, we're proud of that. And I will also say at the time, industry, we're expanding in the state. During COVID-19, we were one of the very few states that actually expanded the footprint of our businesses. Over $2 billion worth of investments in our state in there. We rank number 2 in the United States right now in apprenticeship programs because of the workforce development pieces we're doing, the infrastructure pieces. Those things all pay off. But the one problem we got is we got to get people back to work. We still got 140,000 job openings in the state of Missouri, our unemployment's rate. But what that's all going to come to, eventually you're going to have to start cutting off some of the aid that's going to a lot of people. And I'm not saying this. If somebody needs help, I think everybody in the state of Missouri wants to help people that really need help. But you got way too many people that take advantage of the system. And when you start talking about rental assistance, utility assistance, all the money that comes to the federal government, we want that to go to the hands of the people that need it. But we don't want to make it where it's a deterrent for people going back to work.
Governor, last thing I want to ask you, you're a football fan.
All right.
Western sides.
Yeah, we already covered that football thing. But, let's see, that was about 2 minutes. Yeah, let's see where that ended.
The attention will always go to today's time. That's kind of where
He is a person that is a competent prosecutor. If
or are you not, and he's been tried, and he's been convicted under the laws of this, but it was in that county.
I'm sure they truly feel like they have a compelling case. Strickland's
it has first time.
Governor, I want to ask you, you signed a law into effect that had a lot of criminal justice reform in it. Right. It had the sheriffs get paid differently than they previously did. That's had some controversy with some of the commissioners, folks that you know very well. It's going to be interesting to see how the courts settle that out. I know that you understand what it's like to sit before 3 commissioners as a sheriff and talk about your budget.
Right.
But there's another piece in there. You signed a piece that allowed folks to go try to vacate convictions. If prosecutor thought this office messed up.
Right.
The highest profile one has been Kevin Strickland.
Right.
It seems like there's a pretty compelling case to get attention for that guy. I know that everybody that applies to your office for a pardon, I'm sure they truly feel like they have a compelling case. Strickland's has caught folks' eye a little more. You've said you're working towards that. As that process moves on, do you feel like that process thus far has been what you intended when you signed the bill, and do you give him any extra time because of the situation?
Well, I think it's the process in place is what it should be. If the local levels where a crime was committed, and this is kind of the old sheriff in me speaking too, those are the jurors who come from that area, unless they was brought in from somewhere else. But it was in that county, that place. If that county decides, hey, we made a mistake or we think we did wrong here, then they should have first stake in it. For a governor to be able to be in that position, I don't know the situation at the time other than what the paperwork that comes in. But if you got a prosecutor up there that says, hey, I made a mistake, you got a judge up there that says, hey, I made a mistake, or it just wasn't a good case, then that's what that process was set up for. But, somebody's got to take the responsibility one way or the other on this, are you going to let the guy out or are you not, And he's been tried, and he's been convicted under the laws of the state, and right now that's the way I view that, But then again, they've got a law now that they've got an alternative way to do things.
And Jean Peters Baker's a serious prosecutor. I mean, she's a respected person in that field. It seems like she has the weight if she comes out and wants to use this law. Probably fortunate for the state, she's the one trying it first, because she is a person that is a competent prosecutor. If this process goes through and a judge does let this person out, do you feel like that's what you wanted to see happen when you signed the bill?
I think that's the way the law is, and that's what I've always supported. The law says they can do that. It gives them an opportunity to go down that route for people like this, and I want to say it's kind of a last chance or a second chance for what they did. I think anytime you look at these cases, Scott, the attention will always go to today's time. That's kind of where everything gets wrapped around. You'll hear very few people talking about the victims or what that crime scene looked like or what happened during that time. Who was these people? And I think all of those are important factors when you make decisions like that. Because, I talk to people all the time. We've pardoned people before. I've met them, and you like the people and everything, but you still have to remember there's victims out there that are part of the process too. So you have to take everything into consideration.
I've noticed you pardon more folks than your predecessors. Donald Trump pardoned more folks than his predecessors. Do you think that's an evolving thing amongst Republicans, or do you think that's, if you have a confident leader, he feels confident enough to make those decisions? What do you think makes you feel more comfortable to give folks a chance?
Maybe because I've been in that arena a long time, and I do realize people make mistakes. I don't know that everybody's a hardened criminal out there that's in prison. I think they made terrible choices. Some of them did. They made mistakes. I don't know that some of the sentences match because they're all over the board. Let's face it. It depends what judge you're in, what county you're from. Somebody that commits a crime in
charge
St.
you
Louis
use,
is definitely
federal
gonna
or
be treated
state?
different than somebody that gets a crime in Lafayette County, or wherever that might be, as far as the sentencing structure goes. So I think it's important you go back and look at all those things. You look at something that happened 20 years ago versus what's going on today. I remember one time in a marijuana case early on in my career when a guy was growing marijuana, and he goes into a jury trial. He's in there 30 minutes. It's over with, and he gets a 20-year sentence. That's just the way it was. You wouldn't get that today if you tried. But I think the point of it is you got to kind of think through things through life. So there's lots and lots of people sitting out there wanting to be able to be pardoned, wanting to be able to get their executions. You just got to look at all those cases and kind of match them up. If a guy got a 20-year sentence 20 years ago, maybe he does need to be time to be let out for whatever reason. But those are all decisions you make as governor. So we want to, I guess the point I want to tell you and the listener, we take that very seriously. Our legal team goes through this. They bring people in here and says, hey, take a look at these, and that's what we do. And we try to keep moving that
Who's
forward.
competition?
So you've got, you hear folks talk about crime, especially in St. Louis, Kansas City, big problems. Maybe the best crime prevention is better than cops even, is a job. And I read where Missouri is now at the top of the site selection list. How'd we get there?
Yeah, I think it goes back to workforce development infrastructure, and we're talking about things. If you really want to change the crime rate, Scott, in the state of Missouri, if you want to change the health care, first of all, you're going to have somebody that understands it's a long-term project, and it's going to start with a kid. That's the only way you're going to do it. You're going to have to make sure in early childhood development, whatever you want to call the program, it doesn't matter, but you got to figure out how do you get a kid in a classroom setting to give them an education, and how do you know, and be able to be honest with them and say, look, you're probably not college material, or you've got alternatives to go to college. You need to go in the workforce. We have spent a tremendous amount of time and resources making sure a high school student knows what the workforce of tomorrow is.
I mean, you can make a better living for your family a lot of times going to Rankin Tech than a lot of college degrees.
Well, certainly.
I mean,
you can go to OTC, you can go, well, you've seen just Rankin and Columbia. We were up there this week where they're partnering up with the schools in the community to get that education environment to those high school kids, to get them exposed to that. And you're exactly right. I met a kid down in Poplar Bluff at a trailer manufacturing place down there that makes trailers down there. Yeah, and kids sitting there at a terminal running robotic welders making $65,000 a year. Yeah.
Well, that's good living in Poplar Bluff, I can tell you.
It's a good living anywhere in the state of Missouri if you can start off like that. And he's an OTC graduate, I believe, at the time. It's been several years ago, but I think that's the kind of stuff that we're doing, and we're really doing it right, and we're making sure people know that, and that's why we're getting those rankings of that.
I saw you put the flags at half-staff this past week. Representative Tom Hannigan passed away. Yeah. You knew Tom. Tell folks about him.
Yeah, you know what? Anytime you lose somebody suddenly like that, and somebody like
that's
Tom.
Enough of that. So, okay, I'm kind of glad we watched the rest of it and we watched it together, because actually I have a lot of respect for some of the stuff he was just talking about. Some stuff I don't. Like any other state, you have a love-hate relationship with your governor. And so I got to give this guy, some credit here, because he's talking about the jobs program we have here in Missouri, where there's encouragement now in the state of Missouri for people to literally go and get technical training rather than go for a degree from college. And I'm a big proponent of that. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need welders, people that actually get, things, done physically. And that gets missed a lot of time because, a lot of parents pressure their kids, hey, you got to go to college, get that, that 6-year degree, that master's degree, and, underwater basket weaving or whatever it is. A lot of those are just garbage degrees that literally won't get you anywhere. So at any rate, I'm going to give him credit for that. So I think, we covered pretty much everything, as far as the executive order. First of all, I want to say hello to everyone else who's come in here. We have Gina M. who's come in. Sherry's come in. And Jebediah said, I'm glad he touched on people going to prison for owning a plant. Now let's do something about it. Jebediah, I agree with you. That
Yes.
needs to be solved too. We have some, in the past, we've done some pretty draconian things to people smoking, like a marijuana joint. That kind of silliness and nonsense needs to stop too. The war on drugs, on that level has been an abject failure. Actually, many would argue on every level, it's been an abject failure, and it simply empowers a lot of people that shouldn't be empowered in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Let's
it's
see.
been an absolute totalitarian nightmare.
Yep. Yep. The war on drugs has failed. It's absolutely failed. And it's been extremely expensive, and it did not work. And it still doesn't work. And it's been going on since when? Nixon? Now, it was renewed, of course, by George Bush. No, not George Bush, Ronald Reagan. I think it was Reagan or Bush.
Mm-hmm.
But
it was Reagan.
It was Reagan? Okay.
Yeah, you had Nancy Pelosi or Nancy. Well, they're pretty close. Nancy Reagan that said, "Oh, just say no."
Yep, I remember that. Just say
yeah,
no.
her little campaign that. Meanwhile, in the background, you got the CAA doing their own thing too.
Yep.
Yep. Going in the opposite direction.
Yeah. Well, you see that's the problem though, is that Nancy went and she never talked to the CIA with the Just Say No campaign. She really didn't. She gave them no attention at all. She missed them completely. She went to schools, but she forgot to go to Langley. That's what happened. Let's see. Voodoo says, my grandson is 18 and he's learning plumbing. That is awesome, Voodoo. I'll tell you what, plumbers make really good money. So do electricians. And that's often overlooked because there's pressure for these silly degrees, from college. I know personally, I know a lot of electricians, and they do pretty good. They do pretty good. Most of them do very well, except for when they work for small concerns. That generally becomes the problem with salary.
Yeah, my high school ag teacher, shop class, welding, and all. I took 2 years of welding. But he was Mike Kaiholtz. He's actually the at CMSU. He is the agricultural courses guy up at CMSU as well. But he took the college courses and put them in the high school, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's see. I want to read what Jebediah put up. Glad he touched on people going to prison. Oh, hang on a second. It wasn't that one. It was Ganai. Hey, Scott. Scott's with us, too. Let's see. He says federal government intervening is bad. You want to make changes to SEPA and division on the jab and non-jab. Couldn't agree with you more. That's a serious problem. Serious problem. So we're not going to allow changes to SEPA unless we're making it stronger. That's what we do. That's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And it's up to us. It really, truly is up to us and the Second Amendment community in the state of Missouri to make sure SEPA does not change. Men who enforce the law are trying to get SEPA changed in their image.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make sure that doesn't happen.
We were when you did that video the other day about SEPA and what they're kind of what they're trying to do. I made a couple of comments under the video, and that whole there is literally no argument they have made so far that has any validity.
Yep.
Because everything they claim that they can't do, if you murder somebody, which technically, if you want to get technical and constitutional, murder is not a federal power. That is supposed to be states anyway, but that's a long story in itself. There's nothing prohibiting them from working with the feds when there is a Class A or B felony or a violent act under Section 571, which is like armed robbery, bank robbery, things like
Aggravated
that.
assault.
There's literally nothing in there prohibiting them from working with them when the weapons charges are ancillary to an already violent act.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So isn't that interesting, though, how they made it sound like without the Fed, suddenly our charge codes are just useless. That was fast. And by the way, they didn't say it that way, but you can infer it from what they said, especially if you've been around law enforcement long enough. We can't get long enough sentences. These guys are running the streets, It's just not that way in real life. It really isn't. And there's other aspects of this that I've touched upon, but we've never really discussed as a group. I'm not sure it's necessary, but it's about getting them into a federal penitentiary versus putting them in a Missouri state prison. That may have something to do with it too, but they need to be outwardly open about that and actually tell us, well, if we can't afford as a state to house all these people and we want the federal government to pay for the incarcerations of people that we literally try in our courts, then maybe we ought to reconsider the long sentences to begin with. If it costs too much money, if violent offenders aside, I mean, if someone's murdering people, I mean, we gotta, throw the book at them. I mean, that's obvious. But other things that we've brought up as examples before, and Caleb and I are going to probably work on a project real quick to compare some basic charge codes between federal and state, so we can get some examples. Go ahead.
Their charge codes don't matter. Their charge codes, their argument for charge codes don't matter because under section 1.480, that is in that, if they are not a law-abiding citizen under 571, section 571 or 570, which is armed robbery and various other things that have to do with doing these acts with these weapons, that they so think that they can't get them if they can't work with the feds. The reality is that they can work with the feds if they're in violation of 570, which is armed robbery or anything else. So they can use the federal charge codes. They can send them to federal prison. Their argument is illegitimate.
Yep, that I made a very, very clear assertion with that. And and that is literally, and I will say it again, I've been very public about this. This is just my gut feeling. I don't have inside information. I think it's truly about two things, maybe three. First of all, funding. Funding is a big one. And I think that federal funding is starting to dry up in Missouri. I can't prove that. These are all gut feelings. So it's very important you guys understand that this guy sitting behind the microphone doesn't have information on this. It's just a gut feeling. And I really, truly mean that. Number two, qualified immunity. That's something that they lost with this. And I don't think they like it. And we can talk about that another time. I don't want to talk about qualified immunity tonight. And the third thing is civil asset forfeiture. This comes down to money as well, but it's a different type of funding, and it's the worst kind of funding. Civil asset forfeiture, maybe the best thing for us to do as a state is to get rid of civil asset forfeiture, period. Just get rid of it. There's too much, it breeds corruption. In many, many, many different ways, it breeds corruption. It just gets worse over time. And,
yeah, even if you send that money to schools, I mean, then the schools are going to get used to needing that money. And so you got to keep giving that money. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
so what are you going to do? You're going to keep, I mean, it is, no matter how you look at it, civil asset forfeiture, it breeds corruption. There's no way around it.
So, yeah, and I don't necessarily like the idea of the schools getting blood money.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point, Caleb. I'm not going to argue that with you. I wouldn't dream of debating that. So, because guys, we'll get into civil. You know what? We're going to do a special probably before this month is up on civil asset forfeiture, and we'll actually make it a group podcast so everyone can come in and talk about it. That's a subject that really does need to be discussed because it's abused a lot, and in fact, it's so abused that it is so underreported that it's somewhere between 100 and 150 times underreported. Not percent, times. And I did an article on this. I did a story on an article that came up, and the reporter was even scratching his head going, the only thing I can think of is that they're doing this on purpose because they don't want anyone to know how big the numbers actually are. Even the reporter was saying this. But they're saying they get, guys, I'm trying to remember, so if I'm off on my numbers here, forgive me, like $1.3 million a year in the entire state for civil asset forfeiture. I suggest that number is actually much, much closer to $150 million a year. And I'm not joking. I'm not, being hyperbolic. That's how off I think these numbers are. But I can't prove it. That's the thing. I can't prove it. But it seems to me that the underreporting is on a grand scale. So that's my general feeling. Let's see. Matt Perry says, when are we going to have a Missouri Liberty Alliance rally? Well, we'll definitely be doing stuff like that when legislative season opens. Unfortunately, the last 2 months, I've had a lot of things going on that kind of took me away from the Alliance a little bit. And you guys notice that with the lack of videos coming out, lack of live streams. And I apologize about that. Things like that happen to me all the time, but there was really nothing I could do about it. Had to take care of those things. So at any rate, we will have rallies up in Jeff City. However, I'm not ready to announce where or when yet, but we're going to start doing local meetings here in Christian County. So for those of you who are interested in getting together for local meetings, this would be everything from political to, basically a lot of things political, but also prepping. So I made a video recently that, kind of came out of the closet as a prepper. I've been doing prepping for about 2 decades, but I don't make videos about it and I don't talk about it really. I'm one of those quiet preppers, one of the ones you wouldn't suspect. And so at any rate, but Travis has kind of inspired me. And Travis is doing such a good job up there in Texas County. Not only that, his meetings are really, really awesome. And I'd like to replicate that success in Christian County if I could. So we could try and get something going on, partner with somebody to help me out with it. So, because I've got a lot on my plate. I don't want to take on, more than I can chew. But I think it's necessary for us to do it in this area. And I think Christian County, Stone County, Latoya's not on right now. If she were, I'd say hello to her. But she was talking about, wanting to get meetings going in this area too. So may partner up with her to get that done. And I do believe she's in Stone County. So we're neighboring counties, Stone and Christian. Okay, let's see. It's all about the money. Yes, I'm ready to meet, organize, and take action. Excellent, Jebediah. Tell me when and where, and I'll be there. Okay, that'll be announcements probably by the time next Sunday hits. I should have some more information on that. Next Sunday, like I said, right now, it looks very favorable to having Dave Plemons on, and we're going to start our pro-life month with the Missouri Liberty Alliance. We're going to start talking about those issues and what makes Missouri so different in its pro-life approach to many other states. We have a lot to be proud of here, gang. It's not just SEPA. We're also very proud of our pro-life programs that are going on here that actually we're able to get a lot of very important legislation done. Let's see, MLA needs to sell some merchandise. Yes, we do. We do need, in fact, that's another thing that we never did get to because too many things were happening at one time. And a lot of things out of the blue got, kind of came to me that need to be dealt with. And some of it was alliance related, some of it wasn't. But at any rate, I'm trying to clean things off my plate so I can get back to full, getting a lot of alliance stuff done. And I work too, guys. I actually work a job. Well, not a job. I'm self-employed, but so I do have to go out and work from time to time so I can, feed the family and everything. Let's see. Also interested in getting in touch with your Christian County group. All right, gotcha. Yep, I'll make the announcement when the time is right and everything. And like I said, I think that's coming pretty soon. I think it'll start relatively small, so it's not going to be too complicated to organize at first. But I would encourage someone in the alliance that is near a major city to actually get something going on. And mine would be Springfield city area. If someone, if someone lived in the Kansas City area, shoot, we might be able to get something going on there. St. Louis, something going on there. Columbia, something going on there. It'd be nice. And we can definitely look at partnerships with some of the other grassroots organizations that are growing up. I'm very happy that we have a lot of grassroots organizations. Thank you. Hey, guys, I'm about to say something funny. You guys are going to laugh at me, and you're going to point your finger and say, he's so stupid. Thank you, Joe Biden. Because people didn't seem to care about their rights until Joe Biden came along. Isn't that amazing? Yep.
I'll give Joe Biden one thing. He stirs he stirs the reaction in the right places.
Yes, he did.
He stirs the rebellion in the correct places. I'll give him that much. He exposes the federal government for what it is, a fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Biden got SEPA passed.
Yeah, that's true. We got to give credit where credit is due.
he's also sold so many guns and
Yes,
so
he
much
has.
ammo.
Oh my goodness, he's been the best. Everyone said Obama's the best gun sale. No, it's Biden.
Nope.
It's Biden. He's even better.
Man, I will say that also. What's his face? Beto O'Rourke was a wonderful gun salesman.
Yep.
Remember his comments about how we're going to nuke everybody? He did the same thing, and then Joe Biden repeated it. They sold the same amount of guns almost.
It was awesome. Guys, we do have to thank Joe Biden. In fact, I'm actually thinking about doing a community letter from the Missouri Liberty Alliance to Joe Biden, thanking him for actually literally getting the liberty movement going so quickly. Now, another thing is, I got to give another piece of credit, and this one's actually quite serious. That's Ron Paul. Ron Paul has been planting seeds for decades.
Mm-hmm.
We can't take that away from Ron Paul. A lot of people wouldn't even know what liberty and your rights actually are without Ron Paul. So there's a lot of good people out there that have been working in this.
See, then you have to realize that Joe Biden is the one that what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. It'll come to me.
Okay. And let's see.
There we go. I found it.
Okay.
I got it. Passive aggressive letter.
Passive aggressive letter.
Thank you thank you so much for helping us get past. Thank you so much.
We should send him a letter like that.
Yeah. And
seriously, just thank you for helping us sell lots and lots of guns. Thank you for helping us get safe and past.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for stirring up this unity.
Yeah. And thank you for getting the liberty movement literally off its butt and out there nullifying stuff that that the federal government does. We could not have done this without you, Joe Biden. I've been very critical of you in the past, but I have to give you credit right now. You've been a wonderful man for actually helping us understand that the states' rights come before anything else. So I'm sorry, individual rights, then state rights. You're dead last there in the federal government.
And thanks for reminding us of that.
Joe and the Hoe.
And Jebediah says he
we
agrees
got to
on
do
the
that
merch.
though.
Merch is coming soon, gang. We already have some T-shirts. I need to get with Jimmy again. Jimmy D. He's not with us tonight, but Sunday is oftentimes Granddaughter Day, so I understand that. I get that. So you'll see sometimes he's not with us at all. He's here when he can be though. So he's kind of heading that part of it up. So T-shirts are available. In fact, I need to get that out so we can actually start selling some of those. We actually have some for sale. We just don't have any way to get them out or actually put them up for sale other than when we go to Travis meetings, then they're for sale there. Let's see. Go ahead.
I said, sehr gut.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. So let's see. Ganai says Fed shut down civil rights in the 60s and 70s. So, yeah, there was a lot of civil rights issues back then. I remember that, some of that, actually in the 70s. Yeah, but I'm old. So a lot of you guys are a lot younger. But at the same time, shame on us old folks, if we leave this place a sewer for you guys, because we still have a little fight left in us and we better help in this fight. We let a lot of things slide for many years. It's on us, gang. It literally is. This is a common misconception in our society because of the way that our culture works. You just vote for the right guy, right? That's all you got to do. You got to vote for the right guy, and then he'll take care of everything. You don't even have to pay attention. You go to work, you go to school, you eat, you go to to the football games. You don't have to worry about anything. Just vote in the right guy. No, you vote in the right guy, and then you pay very, very close attention to everything that right guy is doing. That's what you do. And if you're not paying close attention and watching everything he's doing, then you're remiss. Not to mention the fact you need to keep an eye on your county government, your city government, your county government, your state government, all of it. Yes, it's work.
You said county twice.
Okay, gotcha. Well, some people, may live, in...
Put some extra on that county. Watch them.
Yeah, that's right. So a little icing on the cake there. But maybe you're watching your neighboring counties. Sometimes the grass is a little bit greener, by the way. So particularly when it comes to property taxes. We'll get into that in another video.
There's an old saying came out a few decades ago. You want your representative to go out on a limb for you? give them a branch to stand on.
Yep. That's
You
right.
can't just vote for them and think they're going to take care of it.
Yep. And
Like
guys,
everybody thought Trump was going to do.
when we start having meetings, like I do at Travis's meetings, when I'm, he honors me with speaking positions or speaking spots in his meetings. And I tell people basically how we get things done in Jefferson City. And a lot of it I don't want to talk about on a YouTube video. You don't want to inform people that may not know, that may use that information against you. Not necessarily against you, but use the same techniques for the other side. Guys, there's ways to get things done. There really is. But we do have to work together. We do have to, and by the way, that's a thing too. I worry about going into 2022 if we take on too many things and people go, oh my gosh darn it, Patrick, you're giving me 12 things to make phone calls on. If I do, that means because there's 12 things that are desperately needing our attention. And I will try to limit that. We have to be selective and careful with what we're working on. And we'll have people in the Alliance looking at bills as they come out to make sure that there's no language in them that would hurt our very dear child, SEPA. And so we're going to have to look at every bill, every single bill, because we know how the other side works. We understand what they do and how they do it. Ron Calzone helps out in that regard too. I don't want to, think of Ron as being a crutch for taking care of everything. We need to carry some of the water here, gang. All of us do. Okay, let's see. Obama said the other day, keep voting for the bums. Okay. I don't know anything about it. Obama said something recently? Because he's been quiet for a while now. But I've not been paying attention to the news lately either. So, but I am really, really, really grateful, for you guys, basically to come and join us on this adventure of making Missouri the freest state. And this is a big project, but SEPA getting passed was really leapfrogging many, many states for the Freedom Index. We did, when we got, and that's why we got to protect it, gang. We leapfrogged from 11th freest state to 5th freest state in the United States by passing SEPA. And we're number one. We're absolutely number one with no competition for gun rights. There's not a single state that has better gun rights than we do. Not one.
Passing SEPA was historical.
Yes, it was. And by the way, I think, I've talked to a couple of people. I'm wanting a partner or two, but I was thinking about writing a book about, SEPA. I was actually thinking about that. And because it is historic. It's absolutely historic. Plus, also, it was all about having a blueprint for other states to do the same thing. But unfortunately,
that would be a real good idea.
Yep. The two people I contacted were not interested. So, and I don't have enough time to take on the project. Guys, I take off more than Go ahead.
So much for that idea, then. That's all right. We got plenty of other things to keep us busy.
We do. We're busy folks. But hopefully, remember now, gang, for those of you who are watching this now or watching this later, for those of you who want a real good 2-year history on SEPA, just remember our other YouTube channel, the Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast. There is an enormous treasure trove of videos while we were going through it in 2020 and 2021. I mean, the good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, it was all there. And what was beautiful about it is this is the beauty of an organization like this or any other grassroots organization that has immediate communication with the people in the organization. We got information that we needed in a timely fashion to deal with very specific time-sensitive issues to get SEPA moving along. We knew exactly where the bottlenecks were. We knew where to apply pressure. Those of you who were with us in 2021, there was 2 times that I literally was doing live streams in the middle of the day. We need to apply pressure here. There was Senator Crabcakes. I'm sorry, it's not Crabcakes. It's Senator Huff. Senator Huff's office. And then also with Senator Rodent. Or I'm sorry, Rowden. Those 2 places, and then not to mention there was a little bit with Schatz, but that was kind of a long-term deal. So we knew where we needed to apply pressure and when to get SEPA done, to get it moving along, because it was getting stuck. This is how they kill bills in Jefferson City. They don't allow them out of committee, or they don't assign them a committee. That's where we have to apply pressure. is when that kind of thing happens. So phone calls,
Yeah,
emails,
we.
and go ahead.
I would say we had that problem with a certain bill regarding the current situation in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, Matt says Missouri is what Texas thinks it is on the freedom scale. That's certainly true for gun rights. Texas thinks it's number one. Well, Texas actually was number one before we had SEPA.
Texas still really wasn't number one. They still, what's the word I'm looking for? They still didn't have permitless carry down there until this year.
Yep. So that's true too, but they did have other things. But we won't go into that. It doesn't really matter. Missouri is definitely number one because of SEPA. And remember that, gang, because we do have forces trying to take SEPA away from us. We have to make sure we keep it. So we'll see. I'm worried about the possibility of legislation, or executive order. Actually, executive order cannot do that. So let me take that back and retract it. They have to go through the legislative process to change SEPA. And we have to look for little parts of SEPA inside different bills. Little parts of attacking SEPA, inside different bills. So there's, a two-sentence thing in one bill, and then a completely unrelated bill, it's got 3 sentences, and then another bill, it's got 1 sentence. And if those bills all get through, all those sentences put together actually do something to SEPA. This is something that the other side does all the time. This is the type of attacks we should look for as well. That's why we got to look very carefully through any proposed legislation in 2022.
Yeah, they do a lot of omnibus stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, Pat, I just saw you were on, man. I was just getting on to say Happy Halloween to you and Happy Halloween to everyone.
Hey, you too, Joe Mama. Nice to talk to you again, man.
It's been a while, man. It's been a while.
It has.
I've been a little busy lately.
Yeah, that's been hitting all of us lately. So a lot of things going on in our lives, gang, and not enough fun time. That's another thing that kind of, strikes me as something that a lot of people seem to be running into. Not a lot of fun time. And I'm very grateful for people who give up their fun time to fight for the future of their state, and that's their kids' futures. I'm really, really grateful when people sacrifice their time to actually make sure that their state remains free or becomes freer than it currently is. Every state's worth saving, but I live in Missouri and I can't save other states. I need to concentrate on the state I live in. But if you're in another state and you're watching this video, please do contact me. I'll literally set you on the right path. I'll do anything I can, to get you on starting a liberty movement. There's also in California, Alex Harat has actually started the California Freedom Alliance. So he's actually starting the same thing. And in fact, he's got some impressive people in his alliance. He's got a lot of local politicians in his alliance. So he's actually working towards certain goals as well. And in fact, he could not be with us tonight. He told me very specific, because I invited him personally. And he says, it is not tonight I can't do it. So at any rate, and he told me why, so I respected that. So, but we'll have him on a little more often, and he's fighting the fight in California. And frankly, I have it easy compared to him. Missouri is already a pretty conservative state. Thank God.
Yeah, they need more fighters out there in California.
They do.
Everybody's running away. That's not helping the state. And if you run away from one and let them take it over, they'll move to the next.
Yep. Ganai says, I thought we weren't supposed to have bills within bills here in Missouri. Ganai, I can actually give you an example of how that happened with PDMP. Because actually in PDMP, they said that it would not apply to gun registrations. But they also said in that bill that they would follow all HEPA regulations. So they had a bill within a bill with PDMP. That's how they do things.
Yep.
That's how the other side gets this stuff through. And we knew about that in advance. Go ahead.
I was going to say, however, we also did the same thing. We got banning, mandating for public transit and public services. So,
yeah. Let's see. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to give you the final call here for the chat side on YouTube before we end it, but we'll stay in Discord for a little bit longer for those of you who wanted to come in and chat but didn't want to be on the live stream. And once again, I respect that too. And thank you, all of you who came in and participated in the live stream. Love you guys. Thank you very much. So, yep, you guys can come on in if you want to Discord. Any final comments, questions, anything else? Merch coming. We already have T-shirts. That's a done deal, actually. I'm not wearing one right now. I'm going to, it's getting colder out, and so I'm going long sleeve and vest, which is, you know, kind of the way I dress normally anyway.
Yeah.
So, but I should be doing the T-shirt.
You can take that T-shirt and put it over over a long sleeve, just neutral color to match it.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose I could. So we could get that done. But yeah, we need to sell T-shirts again, and we had a good time doing that at Travis's place and everything, and we sold them at cost on Travis's place, and you know, we'll, you know, maybe to finish out the first batch, we may stick with that, but after that, we're going to have to make a little bit on them. And also, oh, one more thing, because this is Sunday. Oh shoot, I forgot about that. Next Sunday is Travis's meeting, so I can still do the live stream if I leave the meeting when it's finished at Travis's, because I intend to do a live stream with Dave Plemons. And by the way, everyone's invited. When I have Dave Plemons on, you guys can come in and talk, and I highly recommend it. For those of you who are pro-life or interested in the pro-life issues, Dave has a lot of very interesting things to say about what we've done in Missouri that other states have missed the mark on. And also how we secretly, we have lots of secret weapons in our arsenal with the pro-life issue. So, but anyway, Dave could talk to us about that. But next Sunday is Travis's meeting, the 7th. I believe it's the 7th. Is that right? Or is it the 6th? I can't remember. I think it's the 7th. And the meetings start, and by the way, please email Travis at the Prepared Homestead at protonmail.com. preparedhomestead@protonmail.com if you want to go to his meeting, because, you know, basically email him and that's the way we do it. But his meetings are really, really, really good. Really good. And I've been going regularly for, I think it's 4 months now. And so I highly recommend his meetings to those of you guys who could go. Okay, Jebediah says he'll be here for the next live stream. Awesome. Let's see. Matt Perry says, good job, guys. Thanks. That'll be T-shirts available at Travis's meeting November 7th. Actually, Jimmy's got them. So if Jimmy can't make it to the meeting, the answer would be no. Otherwise, I can get him to ship them to me. And if that's the case, then I should have them. I'll contact Jimmy either tonight or tomorrow on that. So, you know, like I said, Jimmy actually has them. So, and also, too, we don't have that big of a selection left. I think, gosh, you know, I shouldn't say anything. We just don't have a whole lot of them left. I think we might have a grand total of 6 or 7 T-shirts left from the first batch. All the doom and gloom, it always gives me hope. Thanks, guys. Hey, no problem. Voodoo, we're all about hope, but we're gloom and doomers, but that's why we fight so hard, because we do want to become self-fulfilling prophecies, you know. Missouri will be number 1. It absolutely will be. We will will it to be number 1, the freest, best state to live in with the most liberties out of all 50 states of the union, because we give a darn. All of us do. Every one of us. If we give a darn, we can make it happen. It really is simple, guys. Come to a public meeting sometime. I'll train you guys on how to do this. You guys remember when I've actually done live streams, or at least recordings, where I was actually calling up these guys? I mean, that's part of it. That's the public part. That's the part I can't get away from, because they could be recording the phone calls and replaying them. But there's other techniques too. So to get things done up in Jefferson City, and I'm very happy to share that with you guys. But it's very, very, very important. Those phone calls and those emails are actually more critical than you think. The visits are incredibly powerful too, but you can't do those as often as emails and phone calls. I get that. It's 3 hours and 15 minutes, I think, for me to get to Jeff City. I think that's how long it takes me. I'm pretty far away from there. Okay, Sherry says Sunday, November 7th. Yes, that is correct for Travis's meeting. Sunday. It's this coming up Sunday, next Sunday. And the meeting starts at 2. and usually ends around 4 or 5 o'clock. So I would have to leave there at 4 because I need to get back home to do a live stream myself. And I've already made that communication with Dave Plemons, and he said his schedule was clear. So I think we're pretty much a done deal with having Dave Plemons. Once again, Missouri Right to Life. So, okay, don't see anything else coming in the chat. So I'll tell you what, guys, we should go ahead and wrap it up. You guys have anything else you want to add or you want to say?
I'm good right now.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, for those of you watching on YouTube, I want to thank you for being with us. We absolutely love you guys. Thank you for coming in and commenting and chatting with us, interacting with us. Thank you for being a part of the Alliance. Please sign up for the email list on our website if you haven't done so already. That list is going to be extremely important going into the legislative season. So please do that if you haven't so far. Let's see. Other than that, like I said, thank you for being here with us and listening to us and helping us basically with shaping the state of Missouri, because that's on us. We don't want politicians shaping Missouri. That's what we don't want. We want the populace, the people, shaping Missouri. And so that's why we talk so openly as we do about sheriffs wanting to shape SEPA. That is not their job, nor is it their job to shape the laws that they enforce. That is our job. They enforce the laws that we create, we the people create. This is the way it's supposed to work. If we let it go the other way, that's towards totalitarianism. If we let it go our way, that's towards freedom. So, I mean, it's a tug of war. And law enforcement wants their gaga back. We talked about that. They want their gaga. And we have to be tough parents with these law enforcement men in southeast Missouri. We have to be tough parents. We have to keep the gaga away from them and not let them have their gaga back for just a little bit so they can, ease their symptoms of withdrawal. We need to keep the gaga away. All right? Okay. Thank you all for watching. Love all of you. We're going to stay in Discord here for about another half an hour. At least I'll be in there for about another half an hour. So if you guys want to come in and chat with us without being on the live stream, you're welcome to do so. Just join us right here in Discord. But thank you again for joining. And thank you to Caleb and to Casey Rich and also to Joe Mama for coming in on the live stream. I appreciate you guys. Things are starting to heat up a little bit, so basically live streams will become a regular thing now as we get ready for the legislative season. I'm working on a couple of things myself in the form of bills and, the legislation that we hope to get passed. And so announcements are coming soon. So thank you again for joining us, guys. As always, stay safe. You guys are a blessing to us. Let us be a blessing to you as well. But just remember that God loves you, and I love you too. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. Take care, gang.
Auf Wiedersehen.